Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, December the 10th, 2020. It's another Technical Alpha podcast. Welcome. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. What do? We talk about games. We talk about movies and television. We talk about our weeks, and occasionally, we talk about absolutely nothing, and for a strikingly long period of time. We have honed our ability to do so over many years, and we look forward to doing it once again this week. Mr. Black, how was your week?
Busy.
Are you a master of flooring yet? Although no, you got Smitty doing your flooring right now. What are you working on at the job site now? Because you've been there doing some stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I basically go there pretty much every other morning to just clean up, fill my truck up with garbage, take it to the dump, make sure all the trades get everything they need. If they need supplies or anything, I'll go to Home Depot or Kent, wherever, and grab stuff, drop it off. And then just making sure people are doing their job, making sure shit's getting done.
Crack the whip.
That's pretty much it.
And you had an interesting day of RP. I heard. I didn't hear the specifics. I just got it from Shady mentioning that it was like the second coming in chat the other night from some sort of bananas. I think it was yesterday, wasn't it? It might have even been yesterday. My days are completely fucked.
It's been the last few days. So RP has been crazy. I've been putting a ton of hours into that, and then the real estate stuff. It's just today I'm just so run down. Like it's weird. Like every Thursday, it's like my body knows that I'm doing the podcast, and so my body basically shuts down on Thursdays because Thursdays are sort of my like half days. It's like the days where sometimes I stream in the morning, sometimes I just take the time to do paperwork and the small things, make phone calls, and relax. Yeah. And, the moment I start relaxing, like I did today.
Oh, as soon as you stop, it's game over. That's the trick, is that you can't, when you're dead, yeah, exactly. When you're dead, you can't sit down. Your body will actually, it's kind of like breaking the seal. Once you've broken the seal, it's all over. There's no going back. You're going to be taking a piss every 15 minutes for the rest of the night. You can't stop it. You're running on fumes. The moment you sit down, it's game over. I did that a couple times this week where Em was working. She was just working. So if she's working, it means I'm up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I get up, and now it's like the shitty time of the year where I have to get up a little earlier because frost and shit starting to build up on windows, and so you can't just fucking hop in a car and fucking go. You gotta like go through the song and dance. You just woke up, it's like 3 below zero, which is just cold enough to be annoying, and you're scraping the window and you're like, fuck, I'm waking up the whole neighborhood because it's like the loudest fucking noise in the world because everything else is quiet. There's like no traffic and shit, so it's just one asshole out in the driveway fucking scraping the window, and it's just so loud, and every time you get like one pass, you're like, another pass, oh God, you get it all done. And anyway, so I still have, even after all this time, I still have the hardest time falling asleep early enough to be like properly rested by the time I get up to go and pick her up or take her to work. I just like, it's like my body just is not ready to ever wake up at 6 and just be fully rested because I can't fall asleep fast enough. So even if I'm dead, like the other day, I was fucking certified wrecked. And I was streaming, and like by the time like 10 o'clock rolled around, I was streaming for like 10 or 11 hours, and I was like, man, I am actually falling asleep at my desk. I'm going to sleep like a god. I turned off my stream, and I went down, brushed my teeth, I went down the hall, I laid in bed, and I stared at the fucking ceiling for like 2.5 hours or more, and then had like this weird, like not quite great sleep. So I slept like, I think I slept like a total of 9 hours across 2 days, and same as you, like as soon as I sat down, so when I take her to work, what I do is I come home, and I immediately get on the treadmill. I do not eat food. I do not do anything. I grab my water bottle, I get into some shorts, I moan and bitch about the fact that it's still so early in the morning. I get on the fucking treadmill and I walk for like 45 minutes uphill and force my body to wake up. Because if I sit down the moment I get home from taking her to work,
that's it.
Nothing's happening for the rest of the day. I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm in a deep, dark rabbit hole. Shit's just not gonna fucking happen until like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's just fucking game over. So you have to keep moving. You gotta, you just have to keep going. That's just the way it goes. And that was, I just described to you my week. I mean, I've been playing a lot of Genshin this week. I'm still trying to catch up to Em because she wants to like co-op a lot. Thankfully, we have a couple other friends in common that can play with her that are way further into the game. So I've just been enjoying that, and like one of the things I've been enjoying about it is that when I start really early in the day, especially when I bring her back from a night shift and she's sleeping, I don't want to be on the microphone talking because my voice goes through 14-foot concrete wall. You just can't. I can't do it. She's not going to sleep very well. So I go no microphone for like the first few hours of the stream, and so I've been listening to podcasts while I'm playing Genshin, and just hanging. And then if I'm talking to chat, I just type in chat on the side or whatever the fuck, and that's been dope. I actually kind of like it, and everyone else kind of liked it too. It's kind of relaxing. It's like not dissimilar from people doing like early morning streams where they're just chilling with a cup of coffee and like talking to people or whatever, and you don't feel. I don't feel like I have to be like immediately turned on in stream mode. Like I can be only in like half stream mode, which is great because it like after being awake for 4 hours and it's only fucking 9:30 in the morning, it's nice to not have to actually like expend the energy, be like, oh, welcome back for your 65th month, woo, and like the fucking song and dance and shit. That's nice. So anyway, that's been mostly my week, just doing that and watching the world burn as Cyberpunk released. Listening to a lot of podcasts about people who played the game before release, so like, game journalists who had it before the embargo, now the embargo's lifted and whatnot, and watching that, which we're going to talk lots about today, I'm sure. As you can see, there's quite a list of things under the Cyberpunk header in our notes. So let's get on to it. But before we do, hit the follow button here on Twitch. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the bell icon on YouTube so that you can get into these videos in the first hour and do what I'm about to ask you now. Hit the like button and leave a comment. Goes a long way for us. And at this point, I just like reading comments. Good or bad. I've gotten to the point where it's just kind of like, fuck it. I just go in, I read my comments. Lots of them are like for the algorithm at this point. It's not even like specific to the podcast. It's just people are just they're trying as hard as they can to push for us, and we appreciate it a great deal. First up, Mr. Black, we got some Twitch news. Couple of pieces of Twitch news came up on the presses this week. First and foremost, the category for blind playthrough was removed this week.
I didn't even know that was a category.
So blind playthrough is a category, meaning because people have used the term blind playthrough. I actually don't remember a time in streaming where blind playthrough wasn't used. So it's been a while, to say the least. People would use it in their titles usually, even if they were using it as a category. I don't fuck with the categories very much anyway, but I knew it was in there as a category, but everyone just puts it in the title as well, regardless. So blind playthrough meaning not just your first playthrough of the game. It is that, but it's also usually indicative of the fact that you haven't watched any reviews, watched anyone else play the game, seen anything like, there's no spoiler, nothing. You're going in completely blind. That's it. You've sight unseen, so to speak. My cam is a bit blurry. Really? Hold on. That doesn't make any sense. Is it? Shouldn't be. Oh, wait, no? Yes? No? Brightness, camera control, exposure for... Oh, that's weird. Okay, I got you. That is weird. How the hell did that happen? Anyway, we got her. yeah, so anyway, categories, etc., etc. There are tons of categories on Twitch that are, the idea of categories when they introduced them was to allow for, it was another discoverability tool, right? It was, you're looking for something hyper-specific. You know, you're in the League of Legends thing, but you want to see somebody who's doing, like, a specific mode, or maybe you're looking for somebody who's doing co-op within a certain game, or etc., etc. Or maybe it is a first playthrough that you want to see them. But there, or speedruns, etc. One of them was blind playthrough, and anyway, blind playthrough has been removed as I think she's the community lead or community manager or something of that title. I can't remember her title off the top of my head. It's Aurelian, and and the team there that would have made this decision decided that they needed to remove it because it was hurtful as a term for blind people and blind players. Blind playthrough. And so it was removed on those grounds. I gotta be honest on this one. Okay. I'm not gonna be super animated or anything about this. I'm just gonna, but it's a classic, I'ma keep it 100 kind of moment for this right now. Even though I shouldn't care that much. You know what bothers me most about this stuff? When this kind of thing happens? If I asked you, who is it that usually decides that this stuff is harmful to, or is derogatory or whatnot for these specific groups, whether it's a racially based thing or or another common one where you'll see this is like in cultural appropriation stuff where people will complain about cultural appropriation. You know what I'm starting to notice, and I don't want to say it, but you know what I'm starting to notice? Who are the people that tend to do this, that bring this shit up? I'll say it this way. Is it usually ever the people that are actually part of that group? Like when it came to cultural appropriation or stuff, is it when the people come in and start complaining about that, is it ever actually, let's say, somebody from Japan complaining about a small child wearing a kimono during Halloween?
No.
No. You know who it usually is? Are they even in Japan, the people complaining about it usually? No. Are they even Japanese? Even second, no. It's usually, and I hate to say this, it's young fucking white women every fucking time. Without fail! It's crazy! Every time. I just said I wouldn't get animated, but I couldn't help it. It just came out. I'm a young, angry white man. That's another trope. But yeah,
you are a young, angry white man.
I don't know about young anymore. I'm just an angry white man. I'm not young anymore.
I mean, you're still young.
Not on the internet. We're old now. We're in the internet. We're boomers now. You get past the age of 24 and you're fucking ancient.
It's true. It's true. Definitely true.
So it's fucking weird. And at the very least, it's always a white person. It's crazy. It's uncanny. I don't know if it's if it's they feel bad about shit and they decide they need to white knight the fuck out of every single thing that happens, even though it doesn't pertain to them in the slightest. But if there's one thing that I can say definitively, that I'm confident in, is that at no point, you never want to talk in absolutes, but damn it, this is one of those times where it's awfully close to being able to talk about it in absolutes. What do you think the odds are a singular blind video game player that would be involved in the Twitch community or any other streaming community where blind playthrough as a term was used? What do you think the odds are that any one of them at any point in time considered that to be a negative or derogatory term towards them as a blind individual?
I'm gonna wager on never. I'm gonna wager on it's probably never happened, and if it has, it might have been one person.
Maybe. I actually, when somebody came into chat and told me about this at first, I thought they were joking. I was like, oh, this is a meme. It's like, this can't possibly be reality. And then I went and read the Twitter thread and I was like, oh God, no, please, no, stop. Because I understand and I can get behind the fact that there are some terminologies used in language, for let's say the English language, just for this conversation, because there are fucking obviously lots of languages to talk about for these kind of situations, where there are words that are used that are intentionally used in a derogatory way, even though their original terminology or usage was not that. Like gay, for example. Like calling something gay. You were calling it gay because you thought it was a bad thing. You and I and all sorts of kids did that when we were younger. It's taking me, thankfully I haven't done it in probably a few years now, but it took me ages to work that out of my system because it was just part of your everyday language. And you didn't think about it, but yeah, that was kind of a silly thing to do, calling something gay. That doesn't make any sense at all. Really, and it was used specifically as a derogatory thing, despite the fact that the original usage of the word was nothing but, or nothing about that. A blind playthrough is in no way, shape, or form derogatory. It doesn't even mean that the playthrough is a bad one, or that it's something somebody does not want, right? Which is usually what people get upset about with terminology. It's using the word that makes it comparative to something that somebody doesn't want. And so it's like it becomes a bad thing in that way, which again, I can totally appreciate. But blind playthrough, this doesn't mean shit except for what it was used for. Just like saying I was blinded by her beauty, blinded by the light, the song, going into something blind, there are blinds that you put in your windows. This is an English word that is used to describe blocking or not seeing of something, or the extreme changing of the vision of something, whether it's figurative or otherwise. That's what it's used for. And blind playthrough is in that exact same vein. It is not an attempt to compare the playthrough of your game as something negative. And so why the fuck, of all the things that they could be hunting down right now, they decided to roll with blind playthrough is definitely something we need to remove, is really weird to me. Yeah, blind date. I had a whole Twitter response to this that was a fucking meme, because I actually said on the stream when I said this, I said, look guys, I'm about to do some petty shit, because this is that dumb. It's basically indefensible, and it's weird that they even did this. I can't come up with a reason why. Except to say that and this is also going to be petty and awful, but it's also not inaccurate. It was another white person thing that was not blind. The people that did this or came up with this were not blind. They're not part of the group. It's so weird. You must have seen this on Twitter a few times from like white people coming to the aid of the black community at a time where it made no fucking sense, and it's just kind of like they're doing it almost for clout. It's like they're doing because they feel like they have to like participate in something, but their energy is misplaced. Like it's not unappreciated. It's like, yeah, we appreciate the effort, but this isn't really where you need to be putting your energy right now. There are other causes in this sphere that would make more sense. We don't need to invent new things to tackle as issues. We have enough issues as it is. But anyway, Twitch did that. I'm going to assume that your opinion on this is you don't care, but you also, well, I mean, I don't care that much. I just think it's stupid as fuck. What are your general thoughts on this? I'm sure it will be very short, but give me at least enough time to drink this thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as long-winded as yours. I mean, I just don't let things bug me as much as you do. I mean, you know, I also agree with you. Like, I'm not
I didn't lose sleep about this or anything crazy. I just find it remarkably stupid.
Yeah, I think it's just more corporate. I don't know. It's dumb. And when I say it's dumb, I'm not saying that because I'm not trying to like stand for the blind and, you know, kind of like what you said. It's not like it's derogatory. It's not like we're making fun of the blind or anything. Like,
it's not like gay or retard or like
quite literally. I've never even thought in my mind about somebody that is blind correlating with a blind playthrough. It just isn't even something that even crossed my mind. So, listen, Twitch is going to do what Twitch does. And I think ultimately Twitch is trying to cover all their bases. There's a lot of people that are looking at Twitch. You know, Twitch has gotten a lot of heat for certain things. I think they're trying to farm up some good karma. And I think in doing so, sometimes it comes off a little try hard. Like, it's like, you know, is this necessary? But at the same time, like, it's also not hurting anybody. So like, I can't also get mad at it. I just question, like, why?
It's not hurting anyone. It's just why are you doing this? And like, it's just a weird precedent to set. Like, it's not an.
Yeah, like if there was like a group of people that were like honestly offended by this, and I'm not blind, so I can't relate, right? So it's like, you know, I don't know. You know, maybe if I was blind, maybe that terminology would trigger me and upset me in some way. It's unlikely, like, but the thing is
you'll always find one person is the problem, right? So the argument for them will always be there is at least one, and if we can save this one child, then it's worth the effort, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And and I mean, that's a slippery slope, right? Because you know, when you start painting everything with a brush for the ultra minority, like, I mean, we're talking
the 1 in a billion.
If you had like quite literally even, you know, 2 in a million that were like,
What happened to context, Jeff? Like, does context not matter anymore? This is my takeaway from this, is that context, obviously, to some of these people, doesn't matter. The context in which a term or word is used is apparently no longer important, or it doesn't matter anymore, because if you took context into consideration, nobody could possibly be upset by the usage of blind playthrough in that context. You know, you're singing a Christmas song and you're making the Yuletide gay. Contextually, you understand what the usage of that word is in that context. In this case, that's probably the weirdest part for me with these things, the politically correct things with words, is that they seem to just ignore the concept of context and how important context is. And that even with context, they feel like it doesn't, it's still, like, context doesn't matter. They just want to like completely ignore. It's weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't care enough. Like, whether the blind playthrough category is there or not, I don't care. I didn't know it existed. Even if I did, and I was a frequent watcher of that category, you know, if they feel as though it has to go, if there was enough, maybe we just don't know the data. Maybe there was a fair amount of people that were legitimately upset about this. And if that's the case, well, so be it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about it. I don't know. I don't know what else to add. Like, I think it's a little ridiculous. I do, if I'm just being honest. But I also, if there's enough of a demand out there and it's really hurting people, then okay. I mean, sure. I'm not going to let it. Like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. It is kind of ridiculous, along with 85% of the stuff that is going on. Political correctness on the it's getting out of hand. Like, it's just out of hand. But I'm just going to chalk it up to, hey, it's just more of this political correctness crap that we've been dealing with. And I don't mean that as in like I'm feeling insensitive to the ones that are winning these small victories. It's just like it's pretty soon, dude. I'm going to have a cheat sheet on another monitor with all the different nouns and pronouns and verbs and adjectives and all these other things that I just can't say under no circumstance. Doesn't matter the context, nothing. And I'm fumbling on my words. And I mean, shit, like it's I don't know, man. My hands are up. Like, I can't control it. I'm just over it. Like, go ahead, fuck it. I mean, are we, like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Somebody was like, what do we call it? Virgin playthroughs? And somebody said, oh, no, come on now.
Yeah. Like,
if you call it a virgin playthrough, now you got a problem because there's a lot of people out there that are virgins that are probably not going to take too kindly to that. I mean, it's fucking, yeah, it's a mess. Twitch also released its new hateful conduct and harassment policy this week, outlining how it's going to start to try and tackle and define the various forms of harassment that occur on and off the platform. And you can read the full document there for clarity if you so wish. I just pulled this out because it was the most, I don't want to say random, but it stood out. Like, out of all the things that were there, this one stood out. And you'll probably understand why. In and amongst all of those, displaying the Confederate flag will not be, or will be prohibited. Given its historic and symbolic association with slavery and white supremacist groups in the U.S. was the reasoning for this. So you are no longer allowed to display the Confederate flag on Twitch. That was, of all the things in that list, most of the stuff they talked about were like the usual things, like harassment using emote combinations that could be considered like, that are done for like racist purposes, etc., or sexualized purposes.
So you're saying you're not allowed to use the Confederate flag, or no, it's not allowed to be seen on Twitch?
What they said is the display of the Confederate flag is prohibited. That's their verbiage.
Good.
Yes. I agree.
Good.
Yeah.
That it's an evil piece of symbolism. I don't give a fuck what kind of history is behind it. Be gone with it.
That's one that if you polled some people, they would pretty much universally say was a bad thing.
Yeah, well,
that's Twitch an easy one.
Twitch got one right,
That's a dub.
That's good. I'm surprised that wasn't a thing already, but I'm happy that they are. Be done with it.
Yep.
Sweet. Nice.
That's a dub. Good stuff.
We don't need context for that.
We don't. Yeah, that one. Well, I mean, yes, you do want context because the context tells you why it's happening.
Well, yes, but you know what I'm saying.
But I know what you mean. Yes, no, I get you. Yeah, it doesn't matter what context you're using it. It's basically because I guess the idea is that when somebody says, I'm just trying to keep history around or whatever. It's like, well, what part of history are you trying to support right now? I mean, there's nothing that flag represents that isn't basically just the worst parts of that entire part of history. So yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of symbolisms and things that of very large hate crimes and hate organizations and people. Are you going to play that? Are you going to play that card when you're like, hey, I want to show this hate symbol because it has history. Yeah. And we should know about the history of this. My
bedroom is a museum in which I display fine artifacts of history, such as the Nazi swastika and the Confederate flag.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, but your history can go fuck itself. And nobody wants to see that. If you want to You want to sport that stuff on your own? Go ahead. Put all that stuff up in your place and do whatever it is that you want to do. But you're not streaming that out to the masses.
No, you keep that to yourself.
Keep that to yourself.
Next up, video game news, Mr. Black. Big shifts in leadership happened at Bioware last week during our last podcast. It was around 5 o'clock or so we were mid-podcast at that point. As Casey Hudson, who was the lead for KOTOR, the original Knights of the Old Republic, and Mass Effect, and Mark Dara, who was the executive producer for the Dragon Age franchise and was the original programmer for most of the combat systems in the OG Baldur's Gate, so a guy who's been in the business for a long time. Both of them left the company this week. See you, bye. That sounds an awful lot like the classic creative differences category. When you get two guys of that stature leaving simultaneously, which is also code word for we're really tired of working with Electronic Arts and it's fucked our company for almost a decade. Now, interestingly enough, that's my take on it anyway. Interestingly enough, this is Casey Hudson's second time leaving the company. He originally left the company in 2014, which would have been around the time I think Dragon Age Inquisition was released, if I'm not mistaken. And also, I think it was like, when did EA acquire Bioware? But anyway, it wasn't in and around those times. He leaves, and then he came back in 2017 after the then GM Aaron Flynn stepped down. All projects are moving forward as planned, with people being shuffled into place to fill the leadership gaps. It's kind of like the musical chairs of management, where somebody leaves and all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, congratulations, you just got promoted. You have no idea what you're doing and you might not be prepared for this job, but you're hired. And then they frantically shift people into roles that they probably shouldn't have and don't have the experience for. But they're doing that, and all the projects are going forward, of which there are many. I mean, I didn't list them here, but we know BioWare is working on 3 or more major projects right now, one of which includes, of course, that Anthem redo that they're in the midst of, as well as the recently announced Dragon Age stuff coming, the Mass Effect trilogy remaster that they're working on. So they've got a lot on their plate right now, to say the least. Now, like I have here in my notes, it said whether or not it was EA. After EA's acquisition, BioWare was working on too many projects at once, and they've struggled with quality ever since, and their leadership retention as well. So the moment EA picked them up and the number of projects went up, the quality went down, obviously. If you increase how much shit you're working on, it's inevitable. And then, of course, you got the leadership issues, and it just hasn't been good for BioWare. I mean, BioWare hasn't been in a good place for a long time. We saw that with Mass Effect Andromeda, where they scrambled to try and correct that on the back half. They haven't really put out a game that people have really gotten behind since, at best, Dragon Age Inquisition. That's been several years now. People are excited about the Mass Effect remaster for the trilogy and whatnot, and they want to get on with it, and I think they still hope that BioWare can be BioWare, but I'm not 100% sure we are going to get back to that point. I hope we do, because BioWare as a company used to be kind of in that, like, the pillar of the gaming sphere, your BioWare, your Blizzard, for a short time Bethesda, but like, you were in that, they were in that kind of pantheon of the developers that you knew when they put out a game, it was going to be pretty fucking dope. And they haven't been that for a hot minute. So, I have no idea if we're going to get that, but that's where they're at right now. They just lost 2 of their big guns, and they're moving on to other things. I wouldn't be surprised in the next couple of weeks if we discover that Casey Hudson has suddenly started up his own studio and is going to be working on a game, much like we've been reporting at least one of those companies per week for the last few weeks on the podcast. But all the best, for the love of God, whoever's still in the trenches of BioWare right now, Godspeed. Fucking speed. That's gonna, like, you're already in a rough spot, and then you lose, like, 2 of your, like, high-profile leadership personnel. That is gonna be an absolute dumpster fire for quite some time. So Godspeed to all the people in the trenches over there at BioWare. Next up, Persona 5 Strikers, which is kind of Persona's Hyrule Warriors-esque kind of deal, which is, like the Dynasty Warrior kind of gameplay thing, which was originally only in Japan, is finally coming to the West, and most surprisingly, what a lot of people are talking about, is actually getting a Steam release right off the bat. Atlas is finally continuing to dip their toes into the PC market with their titles. A lot of people are, were obviously very excited when Persona 4 landed on the PC. They're still hoping, that Persona 5 eventually makes its way to PC as well. And maybe when this game invariably sells well on the PC, Atlas will say, all right, maybe we should just be releasing all of our fucking games on the PC, because you know what? Money is nice. Making it is great. And when making it is as free as we just need to put it on the PC,
you do that.
You do that. That's the thing that you do. Yeah. And so, yeah, we'll wait and see. But that's coming out February 23rd. So if you're in the market for that, it seems to, from what I've seen so far, a lot of people very excited about it. I mean, the Persona community is obviously a very dedicated bunch, but I'm sure it will sell more than well enough coming out here to the West. Now that we've gotten through that stuff, Jeff, it's time for the elephant in the room. Cyberpunk 2077 has finally landed. Today was its official release. You could technically play it last night sometime or yesterday sometime. But today, the 10th, it is the official release of what some people call the most hyped and or the most looked forward to game of the last couple of generations at least. A lot of buzz. That's what some people are saying. I wouldn't agree with them, but Keanu Reeves is a hell of a marketing tool. So, this baby's been in the oven for a little more than 9 months, Jeff. This bad boy has been cooking since 2014, 2013. It's been 6, I think it's been 6 years. And originally, this was going to be, or was marketed as, a game for the PS4 and the Xbox One. Obviously, it would have also seen the PC, but that's what it was originally marketed for. It was announced in 2012. Okay. 2015 was getting production in earnest, apparently, according to Panic. Thank you, sir. So, people have been knowing about and looking forward to this game for nigh on a decade. It's announced for those two consoles. Things continue, and as we experienced, more than a handful of delays went out for this bad boy. And the delays stacked up hard in the 11th hour. Like this last year, they have just been, hit hard with it. And to the point where even yourself had thought that perhaps this last delay wasn't going to be the last delay, and that it could very well end up being a 2021 release. Well, it's here. It's here. I don't know how much you've seen of it, if you've watched anything of streams, because 1 million people were watching Cyberpunk yesterday.
Yeah.
I've seen some. I've listened to a bunch of, like I said, quite a bit of content from games journalists who had it, previous to release, and had a patch that was for review copies. So I guess I'll ask you first, but just in general, before I've got a bunch of bullet points here. If you have seen some of it, what from just a visual or just what you've seen, what do you think of the most anticipated game of 2020?
Definitely the most anticipated game of like the last 2-3 years for sure. Probably probably since like Red Dead Redemption. There's a lot of people were pretty hyped up for that. Taking aside any of glitches and bugs that the game has, just moving that aside for a second.
Yeah.
The game is I've probably consumed an hour of watching it between all the streams that I tuned in and a couple of YouTube videos that I've watched. Because I was on the fence. I was considering buying the game. I was considering playing the game, but actually playing it on my own time without streaming it, just shutting off.
A good idea.
Yeah, I was highly considering it. Like, maybe this is the game. I still think Final Fantasy VII Remake will be that game for me. I think ultimately I'll end up sitting down alone and just having
silently masturbating to Tifa.
Yeah, just having a good old school escape from the world and just play a video game without entertaining nothing. Or at the very most, do what you've done, where you.
I was gonna say no mic.
You say nothing. I'm just playing.
Yeah.
If you want to hang out, you hang out.
Yeah.
So back to Cyberpunk. The game. Now, I haven't played it, so take that with a grain of salt, everybody, because I'm sure there's people that are playing it that, blown away by it or whatever. Maybe the people played. It's precisely what I thought it was going to be. It looks like a more futuristic, what is it? Fall, Ubisoft's fucking Far Cry. It's got like Far Cry meets Grand Theft Auto.
I see like
Rage.
Far Cry meets Deus Ex.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think it's worth the wait. I don't think it warrants the hype. I think if the game came out 3 years ago, it would be a little bit different. I think that it would hold up a little bit better. I'm not saying, because it's beautiful. Like the people that
if you're playing it on the PC with a strong fucking system.
Exactly. If you're playing it on the computer, I mean, when you're driving around, just the scenic, like the details, it is impressive. It is very, very impressive. But ultimately, there's still got to be a game in there. And I watched somebody play like the first 30 minutes of the game after they were done spending 3 hours creating their character.
How much time did they spend on their dick?
A lot of time. In fact, I saw one person, had a big donger, and then they had a huge chest, and I mean they were doing their thing. I mean, it's great. You can customize virtually anything and everything. I think that's amazing. I mean, it's the most impressive character creation I've ever seen, hands down. But
brings new meaning to Uncut Gems, Jeff.
It does, but there's still going to be a game in there. And from what I'm gathering, there was so much shit thrown at you in terms of information. There's so much detail that it becomes detail overload. And I also heard that the main campaign isn't even all that long. Like, the game isn't particularly.
Apparently, if you mainline it, it's like 15 to 20 hours, I think. If you mainline it, from what I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I once again, like I said, I've seen about an hour of gameplay. It's hard. I can't rate a game I haven't played, right? So,
I would never ask you to rate it. Just your initial thoughts. I mean, this is watching an hour of gameplay is pretty akin to playing a demo at this point, right? So it's kind of just like
I'm pretty much at the point where watching that hour of gameplay pretty much convinced me I don't need to own this game. So after watching it, I wasn't like, oh my fucking God, yes, and then just run out and get it and play. It actually did the opposite, where I was like, good, I'm so happy I didn't buy this. And yeah, if I get around to playing it, I'll get around to playing it. But if people are enjoying it, fuck yeah. It doesn't look like a bad game by any means. It just looks more generic. It just looks like another generic video game that we've seen before, but it's visually impressive and there's a lot of hype behind it. It's got Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves goes a long way in carrying the fuck out of this game, apparently. But yeah, so my initial impressions, again, we'll put aside the bugs and all that shit. We can talk about that afterwards. So just from the game itself, similar to you and what we've talked about in the podcast in the past, how our feelings were having watched the Night City Wire casts to see what gameplay and everything was looking like at the time. It is very much what I would have expected the game to be, in that from a gameplay perspective, it is not. Nor do I not that I think that they ever made claims to or that people should have expected it, but I think some people may have. Like they didn't reinvent the wheel in the genre for this. It is, you can see very much where their influences were. Deus Ex was definitely high on that list in terms of how you tackle missions. Like it's very clear where at the beginning when you're starting, it's like, all right, if you built a stealth character, this is the direction that you walk to get to the stealth path. If you built a character that's really good at shooting dudes, this is where you go. And like, or if you're an elite 4chan hacker man, this is the direction that you go. And so it's not, which was kind of similar to Deus Ex. There's like 6 to 8 hours I played of Deus Ex. It was really, they made it, from a level design perspective, really obvious where you would funnel yourself based on how you were building your character. And so it wasn't very nuanced. I was kind of hoping, having not seen much of it in the footage that I watched leading up to the release, that with the amount of character customization that they had, that the world would kind of meet you in terms of how nuanced your ability to go through various missions would be, which doesn't seem to be the case from what I've seen thus far anyway. And from what I've heard from others that have played more as well, that seems to be to hold true. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that it's not, and it doesn't seem to be an evolution of the inspiration from games that it's pulled. It just seems to be kind of doing similar stuff. So in that regard, I also felt like I didn't need to just run out and buy it. I certainly don't feel like I want to review it right off the bat. Especially not after having seen the reactions to other reviews that have come out that weren't giving it a 9 or a 10. People are rabid about this game right now. So, visually, like you said as well, this is what the game really does best. Is it looks really good. There is a massive asterisk next to that that's the size of the sun, in which you are going to want to play this on the PC. At worst, you want to play it on a PS5 or a Series X. That's like your entry point. You don't want to play this game on the PS4 or the Xbox One. I don't know if you saw it. I put that there, Jeff. If you didn't see it yet, you can look it up. It's on Twitter, twitter.com/Legolas, just as you would imagine it spelled. They have a video there that shows you what goes from the E3 footage of what, I think it was 2018's E3 footage, they said, or it was E3 footage of running on those consoles, or what was supposed to be, and then what we got at release, and I swear to God, it's one of the ugliest games I've seen in 5 years or more. It's literally hideous. Textures take very long time to load in. You could be standing next to a person and you're watching like 5 polygons slowly morph into the actual detail model of a person. Same with buildings and shit. And that's without all the bugs. So you do not, if you were hoping that because they spent so much time developing for PS4 and Xbox One that this was going to be a playable experience, right now, no. Not even close. And I would be very interested in how many of the 8 million pre-orders this game received, which is a shitload of pre-orders, how many of the 8 million pre-orders were for the PS4 and the Xbox One, because a lot of people are about to be very surprised with how completely nigh on unplayable that game is for those consoles. So, with that being said, let's talk a bit about some of the more salient points of the release here. So, just talked about how the PS4 and the Xbox One version is. I did want to say one other thing in terms of like my initial impressions of watching it. Everything that I've watched on it, even if it's not necessarily a streamer playing it for like gameplay purposes. Love, are you going to need me to unlock that laptop? You probably are. No? Okay. Then if that's the case, even let's say it was Linus Tech Tips where he played it at 8K on his fucking big ass TV. It's like, what does it take to play Cyberpunk at 8K? Even in the small clips that you saw between him going in and out of windows and shit or in and out of like settings menus, this game is at least 50% dick reference or sex reference. Minimum 50% on that shit. Every banner, whether it's like a poster or a video thing or a character walking down the street or a mission that you're involved in where you're talking with another character or whatever, it is just dick, sex, tits, everywhere, and not with like what seems to be any purpose, not for world building purposes, not to actually have any purpose, but to just, it's almost like they did all of it just to say, hey, we crammed as much cock into this game as we possibly could. And that was weird to me. I'm looking forward to kind of like where movies have crept into, and like the Marvel thing we talked about in the past with like Logan going rated R and being let loose and not being kind of restrained by the rating system because they thought that they wouldn't sell enough tickets because of the market restriction. I would love that for games, but I also don't want it to just be, let's put all this shit in here for the sake of it being in here because we can. Which is what it feels like to me in Cyberpunk. You're just walking into a room and there's a 14-inch fucking dildo sitting on a dude's like office desk. For like no reason. You walk outside and the first ad you see is like fucking MILF armor or some fucking, like, I can't remember what it was, like it's like MILF armor or some shit like that. Everywhere you look, everywhere you see is just dicks, fucking pussy, tits, everywhere in verbiage, in visuals and whatnot. And so it just looks like it's being edgy for the sake of being edgy and not being edgy because it actually adds to the game. Milfguard, yeah, I think that's something what they fucking called it. That was it. It's just stupid. So anyway, some people I'm sure find that hilarious, and yeah, you can like your character creator, you're like forming labia and choosing whether or not you got your dick snipped at birth, like, and all the power to you. But I want that kind of thing, and I want mature themes to be a thing in video games. But if I wanted to see dildos everywhere in a game that's supposed to be like dark and grimy and futuristic and whatnot, I'll just but I want like comedic effect for like dicks everywhere, I'll just play Saints Row. If I want to beat another man to death with a giant built like dildo bat, I'll just do that in Saints Row. I don't want to necessarily be playing Cyberpunk and having this super serious life or death conversation with a dude screaming at me with big gorilla fucking like robot arms in a foreign language. And like, there's like, I'm in a drug den somewhere and shit's crazy and all I can see in the background is a fucking dildo stuck to the wall and Milfgard being like up on the side. It just doesn't play to the game. It just is fucking weird. So anyway, and that's not even to talk about how they treat like the trans community in this game. That shit's whack as fuck. But, until it was hastily patched in, so we're getting back to the list here. Until it was hastily patched in, there was no warning. I can't remember the last time I played a game that didn't really have one of these warnings, but there was no usual warning for seizures. Like, you know, at the beginning of the game, it's like, hey, if you're susceptible to seizures, there are scenes in this game that may trigger your seizures. Like, I've seen that warning for years now. So they didn't have any of that in Cyberpunk. And the problem became, there is a scene specifically or two that are basically designed to induce seizures. And the problem that happened there was that one of the reviewers of the game legitimately had a seizure during that scene. There was no warning that it was coming. At the beginning of the game, there was no build up to it, and there was nothing to show it. It just happened. She had a seizure. Thankfully, after they went out on social media with that, and of course it got all sorts of traction, they hastily patched in a seizure warning at the beginning so that people now know that there are a couple of scenes in particular that are seizure-inducing or can induce seizures. Why that wasn't there originally, couldn't tell you, but at least it got back into the game before it properly went live. Next gen and PC performance, obviously better, but it has been described, I think it was Jeff Gerstmann I heard describing it this way with his experience, that it was arguably more buggy of an open world experience than a Bethesda game like Fallout 4 at launch. He was saying that you know, it was him and I think Jeff Grubb were talking about this, and they were discussing, you know, a question that Jeff Grubb asked Jeff Gerstmann. He said, you know, we're all used to open world jank at this point. You know, we've played Bethesda games. We've played other open world titles. They all tend to have that open world jank. It just seems to come with the genre. And we, by and large, we're used to it. We put up with it. It doesn't really change your experience all that much. Sometimes it's kind of funny. Well, you know, you just laugh about it and you continue on. And so he asked him, he said, what is in the game right now, is it that, or does it actually start to legitimately affect your experience of the game? And the response was, it's very much affecting your game experience. He was on his system, he has a 2080 Ti and a fairly powerful processor, and was playing it at, I think he was playing it at 1440p or some shit. Anyway, get into a car, frame rate was suddenly like 2 FPS, so he just stopped driving cars. So he's been running everywhere on the map. Characters just completely disappearing. They don't exist. Or they're like fucking wireframing and just like screaming across the screen at like Mach 4, like they're sprinting across the screen, but they're like fucking T-posing and shit. Or guns being completely backwards and they're firing like fucking backwards behind characters, and soft locks and hard locks, and it's a myriad of issues. Some people couldn't get past the character creator. They get in the character creator, and the solution for some people, one of the guys from Digital Foundry, was he had to turn the game to 1080p, put it in windowed mode, get past the character creator, get into the game, then turn it back to his native resolution at full screen, and then you could like kind of continue. The list is fucking lengthy. You could talk about the bugs for ages and ages. And there are lots of videos you can go and watch, and I'm sure there's going to be montages out the fucking wazoo about them. But unfortunately, they're not just kind of cutesy, funny little bugs. A lot of these are game-breaking, game-altering bugs that should never have been in the release, especially for a game like this that's been in development for this long, has been delayed this many times, and has this much behind it. Looking past the bugs, just from what I've been hearing about the general reception of the game, is that people are either really, really fucking happy with this game, like ecstatic, or they're not particularly happy with it and its edginess. Those are the two sides. I haven't seen a lot of lukewarm takes, which is not surprising given the nature of this game's hype going into release. But it's been very much either one side or the other. It's people are head over heels, and they'll ignore every bug and every glitch and every crash and everything, and they just love it because it's out and they finally have it in their hands. Or they're not. They're sitting there playing their game, and they're getting all these same issues, and they're going, "Why in the fuck did I wait this long and pay this much money for this game? Holy shit, what the fuck?" Apparently, Keanu Reeves' character is not just great marketing, but is actually one of the best reasons to play the game just for the interactions with Keanu's character. The entire mechanics around is Johnny Silverhand or whatever his name is some of the best reasons to play the game. And so if you were wondering whether or not Keanu was just kind of like a face for the marketing team, yes, it was obviously extraordinarily effective from a marketing standpoint, but it's also a very, very good, if not the best part of the entire game. Of course, people are defending this to the grave. And I think probably the most disappointing thing I've been seeing is that when people are saying that they're playing on the PS4 or the Xbox One and they're having these issues and it doesn't look good, it doesn't run well, it's basically an unplayable, like, mess. The general response from, like, all the fans of this game is, well, that's easy, go buy a PC. Or why don't you have a PS5 or an Xbox Series X? And it's just so fucking weird to me because they're ignoring the fact that this game was originally supposed to be for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And if you look at games like The Last of Us Part 2, it's not like the PS4 is incapable of producing some of the best looking video game that you can get your hands on. It doesn't look like a potato. There aren't many games that do look like a potato. People aren't expecting 60 frames per second Cyberpunk on PS4 and Xbox One, but they are expecting to not have to wait for 15 seconds to be able to look at the character that's in front of them. That's a bit excessive. The last thing of note, and for those who are streamers of the game, of which there were many, as we discussed, with over 1 million people watching yesterday, despite the streamer mode being a thing that we talked about, unfortunately, there was one title that squeaked through that was apparently still getting people flagged, and as of just before the podcast, apparently they found another one or two that are also still getting people flagged. And so now they're asking people streaming the game to, if they're concerned about copyright notices, to disable music altogether. And while they work on a solution for that for the streamer mode. That would be pretty much everyone on Twitch. People on YouTube, they're not going to give a fuck. They're going to play whatever. They'll just take the monetary hit more than likely and just not give a fuck. But people on Twitch, if you don't want to have to deal with DMCA, you're playing Cyberpunk 2077 with decidedly less Cyberpunk music. And there you go. That's your Cyberpunk 2077 news. The long short of it is, shit's broken, bro. Like super broken. Maybe don't buy it yet. maybe
wait.
Maybe wait a bit for like the shit to get, the dust to settle.
Wait a couple months.
Yeah.
Let these patches come out.
Let the patches come out. Let the shit, and then hop in. You don't want to. The problem is right now is that, people are juggling between, do I play the game now when it's super buggy, or do I wait and risk getting spoiled while waiting? That's where people are at right now, because they've waited nearly 10 years for this game. So the last thing that a lot of these people want is to get spoiled. And so do they either like wait for a few months and somehow try and juggle the social media minefield?
Get off social media if it means that much to you. Seriously.
Well, yes, ideally. But what are the odds that a bunch of people are going to get off social media for a couple months?
Then suck it the fuck up. I don't care. I don't feel bad for people. Like if
I don't feel bad for people, Jeff, 2020. There is a quote. Put that on a t-shirt. I don't feel bad for people.
Flip it and ship it, boys. Jeff don't feel bad for people. All right, let me give you the context.
There you go.
I don't feel bad for people that are crying about they feel as though they have to play a broken game now.
Here you go.
Or they're scared they're going to get spoiled. If you're scared you're going to get spoiled, then stay away from the streams that are playing it. Block the words Cyberpunk off your social media or get off it. There are ways to be on social media and not actually see spoilers. I mean, even when Game of Thrones was on and I couldn't watch Game of Thrones, I could still use my social media, but I know when there is
well, you can block words and phrases, and then you know what to not click on. Like if it's like IGN posting anything about the game and you click on that, you know the first comment is going to be a fucking spoiler every time because people are out there to spoil people for fun. Yeah. So
just stay off Twitter for a while. You know, in a couple of months or whatever, you know, you'll survive. All right, you fucking survive.
So there you have it. Yeah, but yeah, my suggestion would be, holy shit, wait until like maybe, I don't know, fucking wait a few weeks at least for some of this shit to get sorted out. Next up, Nintendo continues to hit home runs in the PR department, Jeff. Nintendo just keep handing out dubs to the PR department each and every week. So as a summary for this, we've got this. So in the last week or two, we've got, of course, Smash Bros. Melee tournament getting shut down. Fuck. Protein powder in the shake getting caught in my throat. The Smash Melee tournament getting shut down because it was using custom netcode so that the tournament could still happen while not being in person during COVID, and the custom netcode actually allowed the game to not be shit played online because Nintendo's netcode is terrible. And Nintendo was like, oh, what's that? You modified our game to be better so that you can have a tournament in the middle of a global pandemic for a game that's like fucking old as hell? Unacceptable. Take it down. And ever since then, there's been, I mean, it trended on Twitter for a few days of like the hashtag free melee, where people were really, and still grilling Nintendo daily on Twitch, or on, not Twitch, on Twitter and other social media for their recent blunders with just how aggressive they're being with their litigation. So that was one thing. Then they got into the Splatoon North American Open was supposed to happen. And after 30% of the teams that were entered into play in this Open had hashtag free melee names, Nintendo shut down the entire tournament and said, nope, Splatoon not going to happen anymore. And the reasoning? Unforeseen circumstances or unforeseen issues that they couldn't possibly overcome. That was their reasoning for shutting it down. Then the last one that really got people going. So Etika, who tragically took his own life here not too long ago, people were looking to raise money to give to charity specifically for mental health and suicide prevention. And they made, this group made custom Joy-Con covers for Etika themed Joy-Con covers. The problem was apparently is that Nintendo decided that parts of the design were infringing on their intellectual property, and so they sent a cease and desist letter for these custom Joy-Cons for the sale for this fundraiser, and they had to take them down. Then they had to alter the design to try and skirt around the parts that Nintendo were apparently not particularly happy with. Thankfully, the second design seemed to have passed Nintendo's rigorous standards, and now they went on sale and they successfully hit their goal and then some. They actually far surpassed it. They raised roughly 10,000 Canadian dollars selling these custom covers, and they managed to make it happen. But Nintendo just can't seem to just hold back on any of this shit. On one hand, I understand the concept of protecting your intellectual property. On the other hand, none of the shit that is in this list was in any way, shape, or form going to set a precedent whereby Nintendo could not chase after somebody else who was legitimately infringing upon their property in a much more heinous way in the future. None of this was going to open them up for not being able to do that legally. All of this shit is basically all of these things, all three of these, all it's doing is just making them look bad. There's nobody's going to defend Nintendo for these three things. And I don't understand why Nintendo continues to feel like these kind of things are so are so worth being so aggressive about shutting down. I can't get it. You know, if I'm Nintendo and I see the Etika thing and I pay somebody to research it or go talk to the guys that are running this fundraiser, what is it about? Who is the person? Let me know more about Etika. Let me know more about the fundraising that you're doing. Let me know about these things. Okay. And sit them down and say, all right, guys, this is how I would have handled it. I say, okay, guys, unfortunately, yes, parts of this design do get too close to our stuff, and we need to change that. If you can change that, let's do that, and we will give a donation as well to the cause. We'll join in, but we just need you to do this because we have to protect. But it's not that. They just come in, they say, fuck you, take your shit down, and that's the show. Same with Melee. Pandemic is happening. People are trying to still have events and have a good time and get their mind off the fact that the world is literally a giant spiraling shithole. They just want to have a Melee tournament, bro. They have code that will allow them to do that. It in no way, shape, or form is being sold to anyone to do anything. It's just being used for this tournament to make the shit happen because Nintendo's netcode is still being done by a bunch of interns from 1986. Nintendo could have come in and supported it and did it and helped them get it to where Nintendo would have been comfortable with it. And instead, their only solution every single time is to shut the shit down. And Nintendo is by far the most aggressive about this shit. They're the most aggressive on YouTube. They're the most aggressive on Twitch. They're the most aggressive with all of these kind of situations here. And very few of the situations in which they get super involved and very litigious are actually worth chasing after. But they do it anyway. I just want Nintendo and other companies as well, in these instances, my hope would be that they while they absolutely are within their rights to protect their intellectual property, is to, just like everything else, I'm going to name the topic of this podcast context. Because the context for these things mean a lot here. You're talking about a fundraiser for a massive member of the Nintendo Online community in Etika, who tragically took his life. Now they're raising money in his name for the purposes of mental health and suicide prevention, which I don't need to remind people is a massive issue in Japan as well. And Nintendo could take that as an opportunity and turn it into something awesome. And instead, what do? They just come in and shit all over it in classic Nintendo style. I just be better, Nintendo. Like, these three things is just silly. You need to fucking hire some new PR guys. This shit's terrible. I know at the end of the day, fundamentally, this is not going to affect Nintendo at all. Zero. Nintendo people are going to, they hear about this till the cows come home. Nintendo could, like, do nearly anything, and people are still going to buy Nintendo shit. But that doesn't mean that you need to still burn goodwill for some of the most hardcore members of your community. I mean, you're talking about people that have been doing grassroots esports with your titles for over a decade. Because you won't personally get involved because you don't have no interest in esports, but they're doing it anyway. And despite the fact that you've put like 1,000 roadblocks in front of them at every step for all of these tournaments and shit over years and years and years, they still do it because they love your games and they love you. And it's like an abusive parent. It's like you want your parent to fucking love you, and you go there, and every time you see the parent, they get out the belt and they're like, "Bitch, get back to your room! I didn't give you permission to be downstairs!" And then you go up in the room like, "I still love you!" Like, that's Nintendo and their fans right now. Like, these fucking hardcore fans. So it's just weird. I don't know. But I wish Nintendo would get, you know, out of their fucking ass and do something better. I won't ask you what your opinion is on that because I already know all of that, so we'll move on. Halo Infinite has now been received a new fall 2021 release date, Mr. Black. It's official. It is a full year out into the future. Here's my question. Do you think it's actually going to land in fall of 2021?
Ask me again in like March.
Okay. All right.
I'll say as of right now, there's a chance.
Okay.
It's unlikely.
Insert the Jim Carrey, so you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance. It's unlikely. But there's a chance.
Let me rephrase this. You want to hear Jeff's opinion as being Nintendo now? All right, Jeff, what's your opinion on the Nintendo thing?
I don't really care.
Wow, I'm glad we went back in and dove into that fucking... Oh, thank God we got that far.
The only thing I can really say is like, yeah, what you're saying is I don't not agree with it.
Yeah.
It's just like they're just not going to do that for everything there is. They just don't.
Or anything.
Or anything. I mean, rather them do that and just paint it with a brush and just be like, listen, it's our stuff. I don't need to take the time to get to know each individual issue. I don't want to get to know each individual claim and issue. If it gets flagged, it gets flagged. Change it. I mean, there's such a massive company, and there's so many people that are ripping things off, ROMing their stuff, emulating their stuff.
Oh, that shit's all really obvious. Block that shit. These kind of things is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you know, it's a big company, man. They ain't gonna be able to go and do individual.
Well, they have to send somebody to send the letter in the first place.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably automated. Be my guess.
They've got it all automated. One guy's just pressing a button in the background and just auto sending shit. So yeah, Halo Infinite. Let me rephrase that. Do you think? Here's what I think. I think that we get Halo Infinite, the campaign, in November of 2021. I think we get Halo, the multiplayer experience, afterwards. Or, depending on how they feel about it, we get the multiplayer first, and then we get the campaign after. Because here's how I view it. At first, they thought this was just going to be a few months pushed out. We all knew that wasn't going to be the case, but that's what they thought it was going to be. I took the stance they should just literally nuke this thing from orbit and start over, because at this point, it's like this might be one of the greatest examples of sunk cost fallacy, or the sunk cost problem that I've seen in a video game since Duke Nukem Forever. Like, you know it's bad. You know there's not a lot about this that's salvageable. But we've already got it, and so let's just keep dumping shit into it and hope that we can pull something out on the other side and get profitable. Because my concern is they're going to get this to, like, E3 time of next year, and they're still not going to have much to show, and people are going to start talking again, and then they're going to show something in probably, like, the late summer, going into, like, September time, to get people hyped up. And it's just not going to look all that great. And then we're in the same spot all over again. I think I still think they should cut their losses and just say, look, guys, because what does Halo in 2021 do for the Xbox at this point? Does it do anything? It moves from a launch title to the end of next year. Does it even, like, move the needle anymore? Like, are people buying a Series X for Halo Infinite at this point? Or are you just doing it because you're playing the long game and you want the Halo brand to not be completely destroyed by this next title?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Hey, I don't give a fuck if this game comes out or not, bro. I really don't. It looked like dog shit. It's gonna be dog shit. I really don't give a fuck. It's a shitstorm of a mess. I'm so tired of talking about Halo Infinite. Does anybody fucking care? Seriously, real question. People, leave it in the comment section. Does anybody actually fucking care? Is it worth 15 minutes of your time for us to talk about this for the third fucking time in the last 3 months? Because the game looks like dog shit. Does anybody care? The answer's no. Fuck this game, bro. We got fucking 45 minutes left of this podcast before I gotta go, and I would prefer not to talk about Halo fucking Infinite if it's gonna come out in fall 2021. Holy fuck. Because then we're gonna talk about it again come summertime when they're like, it's delayed till 2022. And then we're gonna be like, oh, is it actually gonna come out in 2022? And then somebody else is going to leave the developing team. Oh, that's bad news, Jeff. Somebody left. Nobody gives a fuck. It's dead.
It's true. It's true. It's in here because I got to fill time. That's all it's in here for.
I get it. No, I get it, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Game dead.
The news was as simple as it comes out in fall of 2021, but I still am not convinced it's going to come out in 2021. When you move something, when it gets delayed to the fall of insert any given year, you know the odds are of it making that release date is not good.
I'm getting I don't give a fuck or I don't care sweaters made, and that's gonna sweater I'm gonna wear every week, and you're gonna go, hey Jeff, what do you think about it? And I'm just gonna go,
one week I'm gonna have to, like, hand over the podcast notes to you. I'll be like, all right, since you don't care about anything, I need you to write the list of podcast topics.
Maybe I will do that one of these weeks. maybe
it'll be the podcast notes will be two points. It'll be the entire
podcast. Maybe I will. We'll have a fucking Maximus Black. Do we talk about what I want to talk about, motherfuckers?
It'll be like a 14-minute long podcast. The Game Awards air tonight, Mr. Black. So we'll get to see all sorts of stuff. Dude, the fucking like cast of characters they've got hosting this year or like doing announcements this year is crazy. Like, it is a laundry list of, I mean, I think Christopher fucking Nolan is at this bitch. So they got all sorts of people for this one. But yeah, the only thing that I can say definitively right now is that of the player's choice kind of game of the year thing, after The Last of Us 2 was like way in the lead by miles, Ghost of Tsushima clawed it back and eventually took it. And so Ghost of Tsushima will get the player's choice game of the year for 2020. I don't even know how. I mean, I think Hades is game of the year. I'm just happy that The Last of Us 2 didn't win because I just don't think it was game of the year. But at the same time, I don't think Ghost of Tsushima was game of the year, but I think that a lot of people felt like I did. And so Ghost of Tsushima, since it was the next closest competitor, just got ran up. I mean, it's a good game. I mean, Ghost of Tsushima's a dope game. But I don't think it's game of the year. But that's like, I think this is all very indicative of what 2020 was like in terms of video games in general. I mean, most of it got delayed into the next year or beyond. And so there were a lot of heavier hitting titles that could have also been contenders. But here we are. What we do know is it ain't Cyberpunk 2077.
Nope.
That'll be on next year's slate. And maybe if they're lucky, they'll patch it enough in the next calendar year that come 2021's Game of the Year awards, they'll get in. And Mr. Black, it's time to sell out. That's on you. It's up to you now.
Patreon.com/legtv. Head on over there. Throw your wallets at the screen. All that fun stuff. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, leave reviews on iTunes and Spotify and all these places.
Jeff!
Yeah.
I have a problem this week.
What is it?
It's been a while. I haven't had a problem in a few weeks. But
really, Adam? It seems like you got a whole lot of problems going on.
Well, a sponsor-specific problem.
Okay.
It's a little different. I mean, yes, I have lots of problems all the time, but this is a sponsor-specific problem, Mr. Black.
All right.
Look, Cyberpunk 2077 just came out. I remortgaged the home I don't own in order to buy enough computer parts to play this game at 14 frames per second at medium preset, okay? Mm-hmm. I got it done, and I've been waiting so long to carefully craft my perfect penis. But here's the problem, Mr. Black. Okay. Sometimes I don't want it to resemble reality. I want to get lost in another world where I don't have to necessarily resemble myself. I don't want a small penis on the screen all the time. Sometimes I want to pretend that I'm hung like Chuck Norris, okay? But other times, I want to change it up. Depending on the day I wake up, I feel like being, I feel like a 5-inch dick today. Maybe a 6, I don't know. Maybe I'm going to go full-blown 12-inch. I'm going to pass out if I get an erection. All right? I need to be able to change it up. Is there something that I could use to quickly on the fly change the size of my cock in Cyberpunk 2077 so that when I see a dildo on somebody's desk, I don't feel inadequate?
I would imagine you could do that through a Stream Deck.
Okay. Could we call it the Stream Dick for the purposes of this segment?
I would imagine that you could hotkey things a certain way that you could theoretically click a button and then things would switch up and
stuff. Could I have pictures to remind me of which key is what?
That you could. You could put look,
what if we did it in rows where like 2 squares were like the micro dick, then you had like 4 and you more. See, look
at this. All right, so this is my Stream Deck, okay? It's a little bright so you can't see the buttons, but you could have, this button be,
every square is an inch, Jeff. So if we were going for a 6-inch, just how many?
Yeah, you could just put 1 there, 2 there, 3 there, 4 there, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You could have it right up to, so I don't even know how many is this? 4, 8, 12, 16 times. So you got 32 inches right there. I mean,
that's a lot of inches, Jeff.
Yeah, that's a whole lot right there. But this is the Stream Deck, all right? So you can use this to do all kinds of crazy things. I use this for checking my CPU usage. Right now it's at 13%. You can use it for changing my scenes. These are all like ads, 30-second ad, 60, 90, 2-minute, 3-minute, sub-only mode when my chat goes full-blown crazy. Skipping media, not like that gets used very much these days in DMCA land. All my different poker games, the different tables, table 1, table 2, table 3. If you're playing a video game, you can have your Warcraft fireball spell there. You could have your I don't know, Darge taunt. I don't know. I don't know what all the different things are, but at the click of a button, you can have one on the podcast. You can have one on the YouTube. You can have one on Adam's review page. You can have it. You can have it for anything. It's called the Elgato Stream Deck. And if you don't got one, well, you gotta get one. It's the perfect Christmas gift, not only for yourself, treat yourself, but also for, family member, friend. You can get it in a mini size, a regular size, an XL size. Stream Deck is where it's at, guys. Go check it out. And if you really want to take it an extra step further, you can go ahead and grab a NordVPN subscription, because You want to stay safe and anonymous on the internet? You want to watch region block content? Are you tired of watching the same old same on your regional Netflix account and you want to tap into another country? You want to watch different TV shows, movies? Are you tired of going to Twitter and you're just trying to see a UFC highlight on Fox and they're just cock blocking you? This is not available in your region or your country. NordVPN fixes that at the click of a button. I'm Canadian, but I can click a button right now and virtually be in America, virtually be in China.
Virtually is about the only reason you want to be in America right now would be virtually.
So, NordVPN, 68% off when you use the promo code OTT, and you get 4 bonus months when you get a 2-year subscription on top of that. So they're just giving away stuff. 30-day money-back guarantee. You don't like it for whatever reason, get your money back within 30 days. No questions asked. Guys, it's becoming that end of the year time. If you're ever on the fence, now's the time to support the podcast and going to pick up NordVPN. Link is in the description. Up to 6 simultaneous devices. Go make it happen. It's time to rally it. Just like how we rally up the squad when it comes to hitting that like button, the notification squad, the first comment squad. Now it's time to pick up that NordVPN. Now is the time. It's endgame. It's do or die time. So if you're ever on the fence for VPN, pick up NordVPN. It works. I use it. Adam uses it. Millions of other people use it. It's reliable. It's fast. And you can game on them. So go make it happen. Promo code OTT. That's it. That's all I got.
Mr. Black, is now time for
movies and TV.
Perhaps the most exciting news to happen in movies and TV in a hot minute. Nicolas Cage is going to be the host of the History of Swear Words, a series that looks into the origins, pop culture usage, etc. of swear words. Will be on Netflix in January and be 6 episodes long. There's a trailer for it, and by God, this is the most Nicolas Cage thing that could have possibly happened, and I'm 150,000 times there for it. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. The entire trailer is him basically describing in great detail the word pussy, and then the reveal is at the end, and it is glorious. He's got like a hair piece now. He looks like 20 years younger. He's got like what is it for men? Just for men? Like, so like he's got that just for men look where his hair is like blacker than it probably should be.
Where it looks weird.
Where it looks weird. Maybe you should have left a little bit of gray in there, Nick.
Yeah, just lighten it up just a little bit. I'm
liking it. That's salt and pepper?
Yeah, I'm liking it, Nick, but just lighten it up a little bit. Looks a little out of place. You almost look like you're photoshopped.
I need that Nicolas Cage hairpiece in my life right now. I could use some of that Nick Cage, but yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna watch the fuck.
Oh, I know you are.
That for sure. After some terrible writing and translating, a bad joke in Monster Hunter, in the Monster Hunter movie, has seen it removed from theaters in China after enormous backlash. Excuse me. Which makes me wonder how the regulators in China that screen all of these films before they enter the country managed to let that one slip in the first place. But here we are, and that's what happened. I don't know if you saw it pop up on Twitter or anything, Mr. Black, but it was the really shitty something. It's an ease rhyming joke, so it's like something these knees or whatever, something Chinese, and he points at his knees, and it's a Chinese dude or whatever sitting in the fucking seat, and he like points at his knees and it's Chinese. It's a fucking terrible joke. And what's worse is that the translated version in China is like an actual, like, even more derogatory and like historically derogatory saying that just, like, when I read it, I was like, Who the fuck okayed this? Anywhere? Why? It's not even good writing. It adds absolutely nothing. You know it's gonna be like most of your money is gonna be made in China, and you make that joke with a Chinese dude an English Chinese dude in the front seat of this fucker. What is wrong with you? So anyway, and it's gone, which means that movie is gonna make not very much money. It was probably not gonna make that much money to begin with, but now it's really not gonna make much money. So, good luck. James Gunn and Legendary, as in the studio Legendary, both not thrilled with their movies being part of the Warner Brothers or Warner, was it Warner Brothers or Warner Entertainment or something? I can't remember which branch of Warner it's in. Just call it Warner.
Warner Brothers.
Being part of the Warner Brothers straight to HBO Max deal with their films. Well, James Gunn, not necessarily his films necessarily, but he was talking about how he wasn't necessarily thrilled with it. Legendary specifically may be sending legal letters to Warner Brothers in challenge.
Isn't Suicide? Is it Suicide?
Yeah, Suicide's. Yeah.
That's James Gunn.
Yeah, no, it is James Gunn. So he wasn't at the Legendary thing where he was like, all right, I'm now going to send you some legal notices. So Legendary is sending legal letters or allegedly sending legal letters to Warner Brothers in challenge of Dune and Godzilla releasing. Reportedly, Legendary was in talks with Netflix to host the Godzilla film for $250 million just for Godzilla. But Warner Brothers blocked the deal and went ahead with the HBO Max deal without consulting Legendary at all. And so Legendary and Warner Brothers will apparently be having some infighting here over the whole deal. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, Legendary co-funded and co-produced the film.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of politics that go along in the movie business.
Well, it's kind of hard for them to not be upset when they don't even consult the other fucking
Yeah, and a lot of these movies too. Some of the actors, directors, executive producers, et cetera, they get back end pay. Like part of their deal is, hey, once this movie gets profitable,
you get
anything above and beyond that, they get bonuses.
Yep.
And a lot of the times these contracts, like sometimes actors and actresses and directors and stuff, they do like a base pay. It's the same thing in UFC where, you know, if it's a main event, say it's like Conor McGregor, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll do pay me $4 million guaranteed for the fight. But then they have a back end pay-per-view percentage, and they get paid according to that. And that's where the real money's at. That's where like the big money's at. And people pour their heart and souls into making a product that, you know, hopefully will do very well so that they get back end points. If the movies aren't going to the theaters and, you know, or they are going to the theaters, but they're also going on digital at the same time, that's going to eat into that box office specific back end deal, because a lot of the times they don't get back end on streaming, on Blu-ray stuff. It's box office. I'm sure that there are deals put in place for certain people, likely not actors and actresses, more of the producers and you know, the callers behind the scenes, but the suits. But yeah, there is a lot going on here, and people, you know, for Warner Brothers just go, okay, you know what, we're going to bump up our HBO subscription so we can stop the bleeding a little bit. You know, it is what it is. Also, we talked about piracy last week.
Yes.
Piracy.
We have new news?
Oh, piracy has gone up massively on new release movies that were like premium VOD movies. So we're talking, you know, the Mulan or any of these other movies that are going out that were supposed to go in theaters.
I don't blame them for Mulan.
Exactly. But apparently Wonder Woman is going to get absolutely demolished. Tenet got fucked. I mean, Tenet is getting boned so hard right now. All of these, essentially, it was exactly what I was saying. As soon as there is a perfectly good Blu-ray or 4K, whatever rip on the internet, people are they're just watching it on the internet because it's free. And people, believe it or not, whether we're paying customers or not, would rather watch it for free than not.
Of course.
A lot of the times as well is these digital copies are getting released and leaked before they actually go on these premium sites. They're just getting leaked. Don't know how they're getting leaked, but they're just getting leaked. Probably because
the same way everything else got leaked. Somebody internally went, hey, I could use some money, and somebody offered to pay them for it.
Yeah. So rolling back down to this, you look at someone like James Gunn and some of these other people that are like, dude, a lot of our money is getting wrecked here. You're gonna stream it. It probably wasn't part of their deal. Obviously, these movies have been filmed. Some of them are still being filmed now. Like I think Matrix might have just wrapped, or it's getting close. But for the most part, when they did these contracts, they were just thinking a normal movie-going business as usual. But coronavirus hit. Now these studios are
with coronavirus hitting. Everyone is in save my own ass mode. So like Warner Brothers is in save my own ass, Legendary's in save my own ass, agencies for the actors, for the bonuses you're talking about are in save my ass mode. Everyone, and it stands to reason that the people that are at the very top of the chain that ultimately are pointing the ship in which direction it goes are the ones that, if they decide to save their ass, everyone below them is going to get fucked. I mean, it's like you're on the ship with the captain, and the captain's looking into the storm going, we could go around this storm, we could go through it. And everyone else on board is like, well, we're here, we're part of this crew. But ultimately, if the captain says we're going to go through this motherfucker, we're going along for the ride. There ain't nothing we can do about it. We're just we're here for it, whether we're getting fucked or not. There's two ways around it. So
several hours later, is anybody else?
Can anybody hear me?
Because the ship is sinking. People aren't happy.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think this is some noise that is being made, and I think Legendary is probably just going to try and get a piece, get paid off a little bit.
Yeah.
Keep good grace, and weather this storm. But that 200 Legendary in talks with Netflix to host Godzilla for $250 million. That's insane.
That's a lot of money, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, did people really want to see Godzilla that bad? I mean, how many Godzilla movies do we really need?
I mean, of those two, Dune for 250. Okay, I could understand maybe Dune pulling enough because that's from a movie standpoint. I think that's the bigger budget, bigger dick of the two in the room.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla is probably like fucking $180 million to make.
Oh, it's a very expensive movie, but I would say between the two, Dune is probably going to be the
that was 2016. Let me see, Godzilla. Yeah, I mean, Dune. They'd have to spend more than $250 million.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine Godzilla is probably expensive as well. This is so VFX heavy.
What if Yeah.
$155 million.
Okay. So what if they were doing just for the coronavirus season, right? They did these simultaneous releases, but they pitched to these streaming services to buy the movies for the streaming services at cost. So they charged them what did you say it was 155 or
155 million.
155 million. So they go to Netflix and they say, "We'll give you Godzilla for 155 million." And then they're also releasing in theaters. So if they're trying to hedge their losses, you're unlikely to sell, like you just said, your reaction, Netflix would probably have the same fucking reaction. If you go to Netflix and you have Godzilla and you say, "We'll give you Godzilla for 250 million," Netflix would say, "Who in the fuck is going to watch this enough that I'm going to sit here for $250 million? It's probably not going to happen." But 185 million or 155 million, that's feasible for Netflix while also getting them at the gray and then hoping that the theater then puts them over. What about something like that?
Well, I don't think that that's very feasible unless they were sort of we're definitely going to lose money. I think at $155 million budget, then you'd basically double that for marketing. They probably wouldn't market it as much as.
Yeah, I'm not taking marketing in consideration where you're normally almost doubling the budget, but yeah.
Because like Liz, you spend $100 million on a movie, you spend another $100 million in marketing.
Yeah,
that's just how it is typically.
Yeah.
That's the reason why like Borat 2 and stuff, when they got bought out, the reason why they sold is because it covered it covered the budget, plus they made a good profit and they didn't have to do the marketing. So like Amazon, they're the one, because they sold the movie. This isn't like an HBO thing where they're like leasing the movie for 30 days.
Yeah, that was a straight up sell.
Sold the property. Like, hey, this is yours. You want to sell it? You want to, I don't care. You want to give it for free? You go ahead and do that. That means their hands are wiped clean. Same with Coming to America, which is coming out very soon. Coming to America 2. Like Eddie Murphy sold that movie. So they don't have to spend the money to advertise it. They basically let the marketing train of like Amazon or Netflix to do all that burden themselves. If they do this thing where they go, okay, I'm going to sell you the movie for the budget, they still have to go out and double that budget in marketing if they're going to go do it in theaters.
Yes.
Also, on top of that, Netflix isn't going to want, like, if Netflix is going to buy a movie, they want it exclusively on Netflix. They're not going to be like, dude, I'm not going to spend your budget and then you're going to go put it in theater as well. Fuck that. It's going on Netflix exclusively. They want to put the exclusively on Netflix on that fucking piece of on that movie, because that's going to drive the memberships. It's going to keep people keep their subscriptions going, and they're going to want to take ownership of that. That there's a lot of, and not only that, it's a big fuck you to the other streaming services. This is like walking in a room and there's a beautiful woman there, and and then you're in Cyberpunk and you want to whip your dick out, and there's the dudes coming and whipping their dicks out trying to show off like, hey, I got the bigger dick. Right? I got pick me. I got the bigger dick. That's
there's actually a glitch where your dick phases through your pants anyway, so your dick is just always out.
Okay, great. So that's what this is like for streaming services. They want to be the ones that are known publicly that if you are not part of Netflix, you're not getting the best of the best. And there's money within that too, where they're like, fuck that. If I'm buying this, it's only on Netflix. This ain't available anywhere else. And so no. If they were going to pay $250 million to host it on Netflix, it's not going in theater. It is absolutely not going in theater. And think about it. They do $250 million to host Godzilla, costs $155 million to make, right? Add another, they did do some marketing for this already. So you add like, say, another $50 million, say they're in for $200 million. They made $50 million on the movie. That ain't bad. I mean, a $50 million profit isn't bad, especially during the season that we're in right now. So yeah, no. I see where you're coming from. It's like you're sort of hedging your bets, but you can't have your cake and eat it too, because Netflix also isn't stupid. They're not going to be the ones that are hedging people's bets and being that little thing in the middle.
I understand. My thought was that, like, if you would be selling it on a streaming service exclusively to Netflix and it's in theater at the same time, similar to what they're doing with HBO Max. I know that HBO Max is owned by the people that are also putting the movie.
That's why they get away with it. Right?
But I still thought in my mind, if people didn't want to go to theaters to see it right away because of the coronavirus, but they wanted to watch it at home, then they'd go to Netflix because that's where your option is at home. It wouldn't be as many people as if you exclusively made it on Netflix, where there's no theater option. But that was kind of my idea, was that if they at least covered it at cost for the streaming service exclusivity, and then let it go to theaters, that maybe that gives everyone, because it isn't exclusive, but it's going to Netflix at $100 million less. And so that would be like, it's kind of, yeah, but I understand what you mean, and I don't disagree. But yeah, it's a crazy time. It's crazy because technically everyone is hedging bets right now because they're trying to. Everyone's just trying to. They have to. Everyone's doing it. So
I mean, everybody's getting wrecked. I mean, trust me, the movie studios, all of the movie theaters, they just wish this never happened. I mean, but this happened, and it's disrupting the entire industry. And we're going to continue to see what happens. Fortunately, there seems to be good news coming with vaccines and all this other stuff. So, but this is still going to take like another year before things even remotely start to have some normalcy again.
Fall of 2021 would be like the earliest window where it's really truly getting, like when they say we're going to start to get back to normal in January through April, that's more like we don't have to go into as hard lockdowns in some of the areas like old folks' homes and like shit, because the people that we're going to be getting the vaccine to first, this isn't like the 30-year-olds going to a movie theater aren't going to be vaccinated out the ass. It's not going to be them first. So it is going to be some time. So they still have quite a ways to be in this position of hedging. And just saying, look, would it have been nice? Yes, but if we sit on this for longer, it's almost like inventory cost. Eventually, you're just going to lose more money than you'd make if you just took the hit and put it out like these movies are getting put out. So yeah, crazy time. Spider-Man 3's cast, talk about crazy time. We heard all sorts of just like, it kind of got. I mean, on my feed, it was kind of like one at a time, but I think eventually it was like a couple of them were announced at the same time. Maybe it was all three and it was just how my feed was. But Andrew Garfield, Kirsten Dunst, and Alfred Molina making for what's shaping to be a heck of a multiverse showing for Spider-Man 3. So you've got basically two Spider-Man related folks right there, plus, what is it, Doc Ock in that list, if I'm not mistaken?
It is, yep.
And so, I don't know anything about the movie itself. Was it always a Spider-Verse type thing or multiverse related thing that people knew, or is this kind of a surprise to people?
Well, it's a surprise. I mean, apparently things are going to start to make more sense with WandaVision, and Doctor Strange. It kind of all blends in together. And there's going to be the multiverse where you're going to have the different Spider-Mans from all different eras. Jamie Foxx is coming back. There a bunch of villains. So yeah, we're just looking at the next big thing, I guess, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we'll see what happens ultimately.
Awesome. And then lastly, the new Sonic, or there will be a new Sonic the Hedgehog series, an animated series, coming to Netflix in 2022. So I guess Netflix looked at the success of the movie and said, hey, you know what? Done right, it seems Sonic can actually make a few dollars, so let's hop on that train. That'll be after, I guess, probably the second movie lands, or probably close to the second movie. I don't know when the second movie is scheduled at this point because of coronavirus. But, yeah, why not? Fuck. Sonic had I can't remember the name of it, but Sonic had a not terrible animated series years ago that was actually, it was actually quite good. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they could, if they get the right people involved, Sonic's a good thing to work with. So there you go. More Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic. Mr. Black.
Sonic.
Time to move on. We got 15 minutes for a little bit of
tech support.
Patreon.com/LagTV, ladies and gentlemen. $10 and higher each and every month gets you a few goodies, one of which is asking us a question every single week on a post I put up before the podcast called Tech Support. We answer as many of these in a given week as we can. And so you can, if you want to get involved in that, you can head on over and do just that. Jorbach says, how big is your Cyberpunk junk? I haven't seen enough to know just how big they get. Like, are we talking like down around the knees, or like at some point where they like, all right, that's just unrealistic. We gotta claw this shit back.
No, I haven't seen. I haven't seen enough of it. I've seen people do the character thing, but I don't know how hung it goes.
You know what? Because when you get a character creator as crazy as Cyberpunk, the first thing you want to do is you want to max out all the sliders and min all the sliders and just see how crazy the character looks. It's like, the Elder Scrolls Oblivion when the first character creator came out and you just fucking like hammered all the sliders over and saw what happened, and then you fucking reversed all the sliders and see what you come up with. That's what I go with. Let's see. Lazy Phoenix asks, what food did you love as a child or as children that you no longer enjoy? Is there anything that you used to love as a kid but you've changed your mind? It's not a food, but I used to love cream soda, and now I don't really like cream soda anymore.
I like cream soda.
I also really used to like Orange Pop, but I'm not a huge Orange Pop fan anymore.
I used to like Coffee Crisp a lot as a kid.
Really that's the reverse for me. I used to hate it as a kid, and now I don't mind it anymore. I'll fuck with a Coffee Crisp.
I don't really like it. I don't really like Coffee Crisp. I would say that's the first one that just pops to my mind. Coffee Crisp, which is a chocolate bar for those who don't know.
Yeah. I don't know how prevalent Coffee Crisp is outside of North America, or even Canada. Is that a thing in the States? Coffee Crisp a thing in the States? Maybe. Geez, yeah, as a food, I had a really weird kick in junior high where I loved fried clams. Where our cafeteria had fried clams in junior high. And
I like fried clams.
And I used to, I got them all the time, and now I'm just not a fried clams person. But I think that was also like shellfish after I had that terrible scallop, and I just avoid shellfish like the plague now. That's probably why. But man, I used to crush. And it was bad because I loved our junior high cafeteria. It was pretty dope. But the one thing that they needed to learn how to do was change the fryer oil way more frequently, because the fries were always like deep brown, and everything was just deep brown. And at first you're like, did they overcook these? And then you bite into something and the potatoes barely even cooked, and you realize it's just old ass fryer oil. But shout outs to the lunch ladies there for allowing Jeff and I to have 5 and 6 egg McMuffin sandwiches in the morning, even though it was probably the dumbest thing they'd ever done. That was hilarious. Do you remember doing that shit? We used to go in Egg McMuffins in the morning.
Oh, of course.
And at first it was just the standard. You just one egg.
We get 2 eggs.
Then it was 2.
Get 3 eggs.
At 2 they were okay. It was like you added $1, and for another egg is how it worked. And so we did 2 for a while, and then one day you were like, can I get 3? Like, okay, that's a little silly, but okay, 3 with 2 pieces of cheese, 1 in between each layer of the fucking whatever. And then it was, all right, can I get 4? Can I get a quad egg? We call them Eggy McMaggies.
Eggy McMaggies.
The 4, okay, 4, and then I think we topped out at 5 or 6, and they said, you know what? No. You're not allowed. And they were the 5, he did it one day, it was 5, and it was the Leaning Tower of Pisa. There was 4 pieces of cheese, 5 eggs, the ship barely fit. It was probably more cholesterol in one day than any individual human should intake, but you're young and you can take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck it.
Like that,
let's see. Lazy Phoenix asks, what is your most paused movie moment? What is a movie moment that you paused the movie, I guess, at home for? I don't think I've ever done that. Usually I just let the moment happen and I'm just mind-fucked, and sometimes I have to rewind or some shit to catch what I missed because I'm so mind-fucked. But I don't think I've ever paused a movie to do that, necessarily.
I don't think I've ever paused it either.
Seth asks, Jeff, your son tells you that when he's older, he wants to be a professional gamer. What do you tell him? Dad, I want to be a pro Fortnite player.
You better get a practicing. I mean, what else do I say? Make sure your schoolwork is done first. That's pretty much it. Listen, if you want to dedicate your all your free time to getting good at Fortnite, then get good at Fortnite. I'm going to support you. I mean, I would prefer my son doesn't do what I do, because I know what this is, and most parents say that, right? Most parents say, you know, don't end up like me, you know. Even though you could look at me and be like, it looks like it worked out pretty well, but it's not really about that. It's just I know what
it's
it
also
takes.
the odds of getting it, even if you put in all the work. And imagine by the time he's that age, how many people, and the odds get smaller and smaller over time. Can you imagine by the time Kai is in his teenage years, if this profession is still even really much of a thing in its current form or otherwise, how impossible it would be to hope to take off to get to a point where you're making money that you would make at almost any other job would be fucking tough.
It would be tough, but if it was something that he wanted to do, then I'd put him into some hard training and be like, all right, bro, I'll support you the whole way through.
That's right.
Up until a certain point, you know.
Keep your grades up, do your schoolwork, and if you want to dump the rest of your time into it,
be my guest.
Fucking go nuts.
Be my guest.
There's back-to-back Jeff hit me up with those noise. What the fuck? That never happens, but okay, we'll do two quick ones. You ready? Prepare yourself, right. Mr. Black. This is from Zen Matey. Mr. Black, hit me up with the sound of Keanu Reeves arriving at a party a long time before he should have, so he arriving really early.
Where's everybody at?
Good enough. Mr. Black, hit me up with the sound of Kayla bringing you a bowl of food with a fork.
Kayla, can I get a spoon? Thank you. That's pretty. It's usually she doesn't do it anymore.
Like, there you go.
I've complained enough that now she doesn't make that error anymore. They always make fun of, everybody makes fun of me for that. Like, you know, even like I'll go upstairs and my mom would like dish up a stir fry. She'll put it on a plate and I'll take the plate and then I'll just dump it into a bowl and grab a spoon. She's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I'm like, hey, because I hate scraping. I hate the sound of a fork scraping on a plate and shit. And so if I'm eating it out of a bowl, you got to use a spoon or it's going to really scrape, right? I just don't like the sound.
8910 asks, how do you spend the first 5 minutes after waking up and the last 5 minutes just before going to sleep?
The first 5 minutes waking up, I usually just grab my phone. So I just grab my phone, check social media, check my email, check my Discord. And then before going to bed, I always listen to a podcast or usually like a small YouTube video, and I usually fall asleep to it. So yeah, that's typically how I am. Dude, I'm such a weird person. Like I work so much that I don't really have free time to consume the things that I want to consume. So if I'm in the shower, I usually have my phone in the shower with me, and I have a holder in the shower that doesn't get hit by water. And I play a video, if it's like a real estate video or a YouTube or a UFC update video or whatever. And I play that while I'm in the shower. If I'm driving my car, I'm usually listening to something in my headphones or through the speakers. And I just try and consume and have me time and soak up the things that I want to do whenever I can. So usually I'm falling asleep to that because it's the only time that I can do that. Like the last few nights, I've been going to bed pretty late because I'll get off the stream and then I don't want to wake up Kayla. So I'll sit in the living room and just listen to content or whatever that I want to listen to. And some nights I just pass out there because I'm so tired, but I just want to have some sort of semblance of me time. And I like fake, I try and trick myself as in like I'm actually having me time, but I should be sleeping. So I usually just fall asleep to it. That's what I do every single night.
Right before bed, last 5 minutes. So we're kind of I'm almost the reverse. So the first 5 minutes when or last 5 minutes before bed, I'm usually on my phone. I might be on Twitter for a couple minutes, and then I'll like find an article or something and read something just to get my eyes heavy. I'll just read. It could be anything. It could be video game related stuff, tech related stuff, whatever I find that I want to read for a little bit. And then I'll go to bed or go to sleep after that. The first 5 minutes of me when I wake up in the morning is I'm just laying the fucking bed. I do my best not to immediately grab my phone because I feel like I did for a while, actually. For a long while, it would be the last thing I did before bed. I had my phone in my hand. I'm looking at shit. I'm on social media or whatever. I put the phone down and go to sleep. I wake up, pick my phone up, got my phone in my hand, and look. And I started feeling like I was in fucking WALL-E, you know, where all like the fucking like people are in chairs and they constantly got screens in front of them and they're just like hoverboarding around everywhere and just constantly consuming media all the time and always on their phone. And I was like, this is fucking weird because I felt like it made my days feel like they blended together even more because I was just always in front of a screen. Like I do that from waking up, go make breakfast, come down, get on the computer, stream, in front, playing games all day, finish the stream, watch TV for an hour or two, get off the TV, brush my teeth, go to bed, on the phone, social media, go to sleep, wake up, social media, phone down, eat, on the screen, stream, watch TV, go to bed, fucking screen, just all the time screens. And I was like, I gotta fucking get at least do something about that shit. So like, when I wake up in the morning, I just let myself zen the fuck out first thing in the morning. I wake up and I'll give myself a few minutes to come to, and then I'm just laying and relaxing. I'm enjoying the bed. I'm enjoying just being comfortable. That fucking cozy, just woke up in the morning feeling for a few minutes. I'm letting my brain just kind of slowly spin up. And not fucking like immediately dive into trying to like process shit. And then then after that, I'll grab my phone and like I'll check if I've got emails or some shit that I need to check and go from there. But I had to stop doing that in the real early first thing because that was just I was starting to feel weird. Like I felt like I was never not looking at my phone or a screen, and it was not a comfortable feeling. So I got away from that. But same with you. I don't like, other than like, similar with you and Kayla. By the way, did you finish?
Last up, we have one episode left to fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So other than like the odd time, Em and I watched a movie. We watched Indiana Jones, the first Indiana Jones movie the other night. And that was like the first night in a while that we get to sit down and actually like do anything and watch something. Other than that, it's when I'm on the treadmill, I've got a YouTube video like up in front of me on a treadmill, and like that's my consumption. And then other than that, I'm at my computer doing something work related, and that's the show. That's like the whole fucking day. And so yeah, my media consumption is normally doing something else without actually sitting down most of the time. You know, it's combining it. On the treadmill, you're probably also listening to podcasts or ebooks or whatever the fuck, and going to bed, same thing, and that's like your time. Yeah, I'm in the same place, but I had to get away from the phone thing. All right, let's get one more in because you've got something to do. Will Hawkins asks, how old were you when you watched your first R-rated movie? That is no children under 17 without an adult movie. Do you remember what movie it was?
I don't think I remember exactly what movie it was, but I watched a ton of horror movies that were rated R as a kid. So probably like maybe 11 years old, 12 years old, where from what I can remember, where you're watching like something that's really gory or you know, seeing sex in a fucking movie or something, right? As a kid, and you're like, oh. Yeah, I would say probably between 11 and 12 is probably the first time I ever saw like a rated R movie or parts of rated R movie. My parents never really let me. Well, I would watch rated R movies with my dad, but he would have a good sense to know when to tell me to leave. So he would basically like, get up, take a walk. right? He'd pause the movie. Because I remember specifically being like 7 or 8 years old. It's one of the earlier memories that I have of sitting on the sofa with Dad, and we were watching some sort of jail movie, and the guy was about to get electrocuted in the electric chair, and Dad told me to like get out of the room. Right? He paused the movie, told me to get out of the room, and then when it was over, he told me, "All right, you're good." So like, I don't know if Dad had watched the movie before or whatever, but I do remember that pretty vividly. And then other than that, like obviously when I was 13, 14, watched tons of rated R horror movies and just rated R movies in general. So yeah.
I think I was pretty young because I was at Diz's place, and Diz's place was the home of every R-rated movie in existence. Like he had like his parents had this bookshelf that was just full of VHS tapes, and almost all of them were R-rated horror films, like every single one of them. And so I remember watching, I think the first one I probably watched was Chucky. And I think I was like 8, maybe 8 years old, and watched Chucky, and then the other one was House, which I mentioned on another podcast, as well. But yeah, most of the R-rated ones, a lot of the R-rated movies back then were horror movies. Like there were some action movies, but a lot of them were like, horror was the one where it was definitely R-rated, most of the time. And so, yeah, I watched Chucky at like, I don't know, 8 years old or some shit, and that was whatever. Didn't really do anything for me. The whole doll thing, I was never like some people were just scared of dolls. That was not my thing. But all the same, yeah. So I was like 8 years old. It was definitely not in this household. If my parents had found out, I would have been dead. And so
I had a hard time getting 18 plus games when he was like fucking 15 years old, let alone
I remember well, I mentioned this before too, like with GoldenEye, and I was like at the time I would have been 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, and mom and dad were like,
ain't happening, bruh.
Like I owned it, I had the cartridge, and then mom and dad, like mom came down and was like, saw us playing it, and then after my friends had gone home, she was like, all right, I'm gonna take this, put this, I remember this like specifically, like mom took the cartridge, went upstairs, and then I remember eventually telling her like days, like convincing her over like days and days and days, I was like, well, put paintball mode on. Because it was like the blood and the shooting thing that she just couldn't get over. And in fairness to her, back then, video games like shooters and stuff were still like relatively new, and for mom, who's not obviously gaming at all, that was like a pretty, for her, having her 11 or 10-year-old son shooting people and killing people in a game was probably a bit of a fucking hill to get over. So she put it away. I convinced her about paintball mode. Like we unlocked it in the cheats or whatever, fucking used paintball mode, and that was my out. And I remember the day that I convinced her, we walked in, it was in her bedroom, in one of the closets, up on like a top shelf in a basket, and she takes the cartridge out and she hands it to me, and she like begrudgingly hands it to me. It was like, okay, fine, but it better be on paintball mode. And I was like, all right, cool. And we used paintball mode for like, I don't know, a couple months, and then it didn't matter at that point. We just played the fucking game however it was. But yeah, so that was, I remember that very vividly. But yeah, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Black is going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here, get the podcast out. I'm going to watch the Game Award show as well, and try to consume that and see all the awards go out. And so we will see you guys next week. Thank you very much for stopping by. If you're here on the live stream, hit the follow button if you haven't already. YouTube, all the same. Thank you so much for everyone who shows up on YouTube, even if you're a Spotify or an iTunes listener. We will see you guys next week. And until we do, stay safe out there. And have a good one. Peace.
Peace.